Welcome. We'll get started shortly. Before we begin, here's how to earn continuing professional education credit for attending this session. There are no polling questions or attendance checks. Instead, you will demonstrate your knowledge by taking a brief multiple-choice quiz using the Earmark app. Visit earmark.app in your web browser. You can also download the mobile app by scanning the QR code on the screen. Log in, or if you're new, create your free account. Be sure to use a valid email address because that's where we'll send your course completion certificates. From the home screen, scroll down to find the course. You can also tap the magnifying glass icon to search for the course. Tap on the course artwork, then the Enroll button. On the Course tab, you'll find the recording and quiz questions. Complete the quiz to earn your CPE certificate. It takes us a few days to create the course on the app, so if you are attending this session live, please wait a few days. We'll email you a link to the course when it is ready. If you have questions or need help, email us at support@earmarkcpe.com. And now, on to the event.
Hello, everyone. I'm Zach from Earmark, and thanks for joining us today or watching this on demand. I'd like to welcome you to the webinar, Smart Hiring for Accountants, Leveraging Testing for Better Decisions. And I'm going to hand it off to your instructor right now, Giles Pearson. And if you have any questions during this webinar, please just put them in the comments in the chat, and we will try to address them as they come in or at the end. Thank you. Giles, take it away.
Hey, Zach, and thanks very much. And look, it's really exciting to be here to talk to you today about testing and assessment in the hiring process for accountants. Why are we even here? This seems a bit of a strange topic, possibly, but, you know, we did a survey and it said, or it told us that 71% of firms said they needed to improve their hiring processes, and 25% of firms told us that their hiring processes never work well. So this is really an area that people need to spend some time on. They told us as well that so more than 50% of firms said that their hires are often bad. So by bad hire, we mean one that doesn't work out as you expected. And look, you know, just before we get into it anymore, there's a great quote which I thought is worth reading out, because this tells us exactly, you know, where we're at as a profession when we're hiring. So this guy, Peter Drucker, he's written 39 books on management, and he said, by and large, executives make poor hiring decisions. At most, 1/3 turn out right, 1/3 are minimally effective, and 1/3 are outright failures. In no other area of management would we put up with such miserable performance. And this is right. We all know this. And I guess what we are trying to do is help firms get better at that. So who am I, and why have I got the right to come and talk to you about this? I'm the CEO and co-founder of Account Tests. I was a partner with PwC in New Zealand, a regional PwC firm for 18 years, spent 25 years in public accounting. Hired a bunch of people in that time, probably as many failures as you are having in your own firms. Maybe the difference was we went out looking for testing and assessment and couldn't find any that we thought was of a level of professionalism that we would be wanting to put in front of a candidate. So when I finished with PwC in 2016, I thought, look, here's a problem that I can solve for the profession, give people some testing that they can just pick up and have their candidates do online, remotely, and with confidence, and give them instant results. So that was where we started. We started that in New Zealand, took it to Australia, took it to the UK, and then to the US, and we've built out country-specific testing in each of those places. And why is hiring the wrong person such a big deal? Look, we know this, but it's worth just repeating. Financial, yes, you can, and we have a calculator on our website. You can calculate what a bad hire means for you in dollar terms, and you know it's very significant. But look, to be honest, as a firm owner, the thing that really stressed me, I guess, was the effect on my personal stress levels, on the team morale, and on our clients, who were having to put up with work that was hopefully not wrong, because we did what we needed to do to make sure that the work ran out the door that was right. But work might be late, or the team is under pressure to get things done. So, as a firm owner, you just don't need that. You want this part of the business to just work seamlessly, and that's what using good testing and assessment can make sure that you're getting the people that you expect. They might not be the people you want, but they'll be the people that you expect. So here's what we're going to go through. There is a recognized methodology, if you like, for a good hiring process, all the way from deciding whether you want to hire somebody through to onboarding. Jump on our website and have a look for our Hire Fast with Confidence guide. That will take you through all the steps. But what we're going to do today is just focus on the testing and assessment part of that. So, what are we trying to do here with testing and assessment? The trouble with the rest of the hiring processes is that it's often subjective. And you think about resumes. A CPA Practice Advisor did a survey in 2023, and what they found was that 85% of those with an advanced degree lie on their resume, and 58% of those do that regularly. 90% of people, similar people, have lied on their cover letters, and 73% do that regularly. And with AI, why would you not take the job advertisement, put it into ChatGPT, ask ChatGPT to make sure your resume looks like the job advert, and then feed that back to the recruiter? Why would you not do that? And clearly people do that. So resumes give some information, but it's useful for screening at best. Interviews are great as well, but they do rely on you being well trained. And there's a really great webinar, another webinar on Earmark from a guy called Mike Manilak, and he tells the story of moving from the East Coast to the West Coast to look for a job in tech. So he upped and moved to San Francisco and applied for jobs at all the big tech firms. And these were grueling processes, and it's unbelievable how they get away with this, to be honest, with rounds and rounds of interviews and assessments. Of course, the first 3, in fact, that he went to, he flunked out, and he didn't get a role, and they were asking him things that he wasn't expecting, and the processes were unusual to him. Come the 4th one, he knew what to expect. He knew the questions they were likely to ask, and the scenarios that he might have to deal with, and he nailed a job. And I think that was with Meta. But what that shows you is he was the same person in the interview 1 as he was in interview 4, but he got better at interviewing. And your candidates are the same. You may see a candidate who is like he was on interview 1, or you may see the candidate who's like he was on interview 4. Same person, but so your ability to cut through that at interview and actually uncover the truths that you're looking for, subjective and hard. And to be fair, a lot of candidates are probably potentially doing more interviewing than you're doing. So difficult. References, you can maybe get away with doing references. It depends where you are. Again, there's a technique to that. Have a look at our guide, but it's the information is not necessarily of use to you. So where does that leave you? That leaves you with trying to get objective evidence through testing and assessment of some description. So trying to use a method to give you something that that is objective. And what's the science behind that? The science is pretty good. So this is a study that was done that looks at the correlation between the process you use and the likelihood of an outcome that is what you expect. So you can see here that sort of towards the bottom there, using unstructured interviews, and we're not going to go into interview technique, but unstructured versus structured interviews is a thing. Using references, using years of experience, there's not much correlation between what you do and the likelihood of the outcome that you expect. You know, arguably you might as well just do nothing. As you work through there, through structured interviews, ability tests, work sample tests, so that's your skills tests, personality profiles, and then blending all of that stuff together, you get to a reasonable correlation. Look, and people are people. This is not an exact science. What we're trying to do is improve the likelihood of success. So when you're looking at all of this, the science is there if you're applying it properly. And I guess that brings us on to what sort of testing is there. So these are the three sorts. You're probably familiar with these. Personality testing about team fit and work style. Ability testing is your numerical, verbal, critical reasoning, so sort of your IQ test, and then your work skills is your technical knowledge for the task that you're looking at. So those are the three things that we're gonna look at. So we're going to start off with personality, and this is, I guess, often one that people struggle the most with. So, you know, what are we trying to find out with a personality profile? We're trying to find out what is the prediction of the way that somebody's going to work in your firm, how they're going to deal with team dynamics, what training and development opportunities might you want to give to this person based on their work style, and giving you and them that self-awareness of this is how they make decisions. So there are different sorts of personality profiles out there. There's the big five, and there's the others, if you like. So the big five are the ones with the good science particularly in terms of hiring. So you would want to use a big five profile for hiring. That's going to tell you about somebody's preferred working style. They have a strong reliability. They measure accurately what they claim to measure from a scientific point of view. They cover these five areas, and the big five profiles don't always use exactly these headings, but they're based on these five areas. So if we just go through those, it's worth just sort of, you can see why these are relevant. So openness is around somebody's openness to experience and their curiosity. Conscientiousness is about their organization, their productiveness, and their responsibility. Extroversion is around their sociability and assertiveness. Agreeableness is around their compassion, their respectfulness and trust. And then neuroticism is around their tendency to anxiety. So if you sort of sit back and think about that, you go, well, those are the things that affect the way that we all work. And, you know, we all have different levels of how we exhibit those, I guess. And I guess you compare that to say the others, the non-big five, and you know what it is that they're often based on looking at particular traits rather than sort of across your whole personality, or they're actually designed more around team building and team building exercises rather than, if you like, a scientific approach to understanding your personality. If you use a big five profile, you will also meet your legal responsibilities in terms of using a product that is designed for what you're using it for. And if you use a non-Big Five personality profile in hiring, you do open yourself up to legal issues, because often, you know, they're not designed for that. And if we have a look at some of these, so on the left you can see the Big Five examples that I've got there. I guess the one that we certainly come across the most is the predictive index, which quite a lot of firms are using. The non-Big Five, you know, we do see people using these, and I think it's just a question of being careful. You know, Myers-Briggs, for example, to be fair, we don't hear of people using that in a hiring context. Myers-Briggs itself tells you not to do that, and the studies that have been done says that it will consistently fail to predict performance, and their website tells you that it's not ethical to use that test. You know, DISC, for example, says that on their website says that it's not recommended for pre-employment screening, and they have another product called PXT Select, which they say is the one that you should use. So, you know, if you are going to use a personality profile, just have a look and make sure that it is one that's going to deliver for you. So we're going to have a look at a personality profile in a minute, but once you've got one, you know, what are you going to do with it? And that's, I think, is often the challenge. And certainly when I was in practice, you know, we would get personality profiles, and they would just get sent through to us as I guess I was the partner, but you know, you look at this and you go, this person isn't an axe murderer, so therefore they're okay, you know, and that's really doing a huge disservice to both the profile and the candidate, because you know, you're learning nothing from that, and it was almost like a tick box exercise. We're going to do a personality profile, and here it is. So, you know, your expectations as somebody using one of these is that you should get interpretation support from the people that are providing the profile to you. And if you're in the accounting team and you're getting one from your HR team, then you should be asking for support from your HR team for that. The good ones will also give you interview questions based on the profile. So dynamic questions, if you like, based on what the candidates have done, and coaching development opportunities as well. You know, in your interview, what you're going to be looking to try and do is pick out the traits which maybe require a bit more investigation, and focusing your interview questions around those. But you know, you need to be careful, because the personality profile tells you how people prefer to work. It doesn't tell you how they will work, and people have coping mechanisms for traits which they know are not the greatest in the role that they're in, and your job is to find out whether they realize that, and how do they deal with that, or actually are they blind to that, and you know, that's potentially going to become an issue for you when they're working for you. What is the ideal profile? And certainly some of the personality profiles will give you an ideal profile for the role, and then you can compare your candidate to that ideal profile and look for the biggest gaps. And you know, we talked about interviewing, but when you're talking about competency-based interviewing, you know, this is what people mean, is using the right questions on the right topics. You know, and this is not the place to dig into this, but you know, you've only got like half an hour in an interview to ask these sorts of questions, and in that time you might get to ask 4 or 5 questions in any depth. So you know, focus on the things that are important, because you need to spend the other half an hour trying to sell your role to the candidate. You know, the days of spending 55 minutes grilling the candidate and then saying, "Have you got any questions for us?" Don't expect to hire too many candidates if that's the way that you interview. So the tables are turned, and the candidates have certainly an equal power, if not more power. So your interviews need to reflect that, and you need to be really good with the time that you've got in that interview. So I guess I am just going to talk a little bit about the profile that we built, but it does give you a bit of an insight into the way that these personality profiles are put together. So because they'll all use a process a bit like this. So we developed a personality profile specific for accounting. It's based on the ACCA Drivers of Changes and Future Skills study that they did. And we use the traits. So they came up with these 7 professional quotients you can see on the bottom right hand side there, and we saw that 4 of those could be well uncovered by a good personality profile. So when you know where to go, you can find the questions that these big 5 profiles use and build your own, which is what we did with our psychology advisors. And we focused on 4 areas which are always relevant in accounting. So that's ethics, relationships, thinking, so that's applying knowledge to new situations, and coping, which is about dealing with challenges with people and in situations. So stress, if you like, in its various forms. So those are the 4 key areas that you want to unpick with a candidate, and we focused on those. We then normed that with 317 CPA level accountants and come up with some interview questions and a personal development plan for your candidate. And here's what it looks like. And again, this is ours, but it's I'll show you another one in a minute. They sort of all work the same. So you get to see, where does my candidate fit on a scale of 1 to 10 compared to other candidates. So who are the people in the norm group in each of the factors that you're trying to assess. So you can see in here, and this is a live. This is one of our team, in fact, and we will dig into this a little more when we do a little case study at the end. But so you get to have a look. For example, conscientiousness there at the top. You can see on a scale of 1 to 10, this person is in the between 7 and 9. So that means that they're more conscientious than most accountants, because our norm group is accountants. Conscientiousness, usually with these things, one end of the scale is better than the other. So in our one, usually towards the right is a better, looks better, but not always. And in a team, you're looking for a balance often of, for example, with conscientiousness, the opposite of that is expediency, which is generally not good in accounting, but you actually want some of that, particularly around when you're looking at your processes, because you need people who think differently. But you don't generally want your accountants to be expedient. So that's how these profiles look. And there's the next page. There's a lot of information, of course, that goes with this, to make sure that you understand what you're looking at and whether the candidate filled out the profile in a fair and honest manner, because there is an ability to try and game the profiles, and the good ones, including ours, will have a mechanism in the background to tell you, as the person who ordered it, whether in fact your candidate tried to game it or not. And then you get to see the strengths and challenges based on the profile, and some interview questions based on the profile. So that just makes it easy for you to do that competency-based interviewing Even if interviewing is not something that you're the best at. And then you get your personal development plan, again, based on the profile. So there's a lot of information in that. Here's another one. So this is your 16 PF. So very, very similar in terms of, the way that it's set out. And again, they have their own norm group. The difference, I guess, with most of the other profiles is that the norm groups will be like managerial, professional staff or something like that. So it's a much broader group. So you need to think a bit more, I guess, about what this means in an accounting context. And then there's your ideal job profile. So this is the one that we developed. So we use what's called a finder, minder, grinder profile. If you're not familiar with that, what that means is that finders are usually people who find the work. So they'll gravitate towards being firm leaders. Obviously, they won't be firm leaders in their first year, but that is their style. Minders are people who are great, have a profile that shows they're great at managing the team and managing the clients. And the grinders are people whose profile says these are great people to get the work done and out the door. So if you're hiring at a particular level, if you're looking for a client accounting manager or tax manager, your ideal profile might be a minder. Lay that over your profile that you've got from your candidate. Where are the biggest gaps? How does that affect the questions I might want to ask? Obviously, if you're looking for people who may move on in the organization, and you see somebody who's got a very grinder profile, that could be a challenge as you want them to move up. And then you might want to think about, what training opportunities do I need to give that person? So there's a bit about personality. Skills is the next bit. Firms have struggled with skills testing forever, and this is why we started Account Tests, because it was like, how do you deal with this in a firm? Legislation keeps changing, so tests need to be kept being up to date. You've got different levels of roles, so a test that's good for a bookkeeper or a staff accountant is not going to be necessarily any good for a tax manager or an audit senior. You've got technical testing on, if you like, sort of the hard accounting versus applied practical versus software technology testing. How do you interpret the results to maintain your legal compliance? And how do you avoid bias in the way that you do that? So, I guess actually the last bullet point on there, proctoring, in the old days, you could have, some surety that if you sent somebody a document and asked them to complete some work on it and send it back to you, that they may not have cheated. I think today the reality is with AI and Google combined, it's beholden on you as the person hiring to make sure that your candidate is disincentivized to cheat while they're doing any testing that's being done remotely. And really that means you need to proctor the test, and proctoring, I guess, in general means that the candidate is being watched, and that's often now done by the use of a camera and some AI in the background. So you'd be looking for that. We've seen some great testing, some really good case studies that people have to look at and identify issues maybe in a set of financial statements or issues that they'd advise a business owner on. We know that people pull out a list of questions that they ask at interview, which is not so great because it wastes your interview time and you can never ask enough questions. We have seen people get a candidate to access their live tax software and complete a live tax return for a live client, which I think is quite scary. But that was a process that somebody used. I'm not sure. I'd recommend that one. But I guess the challenge is around your time, your candidate's time. How much time can you expect somebody to use with this? How can you be scientific around your scoring? How do you get testing done remotely? Often, I think inevitably people are looking for testing that they can do remotely. What benchmarks do you use? What does success look like in the tests that you're using? And do you time your test or not? So I'm going to show you a little bit about what we've done at account tests, but think about that with whatever you're trying to do, and you don't have to do it all at once. You can build the tests in, and I think that's where something like the maybe later in the process, something like the case study, particularly if they're in the office, or you can give them something 10 minutes or 15 minutes before the interview, can be quite a powerful thing. But that really only works if you're hiring regularly at the same level. So what we've tried to do, I guess, is create a whole series of tests for roles all the way through from college graduates to sort of manager level in tax, audit, and CAS. Generally 40 data points, so 40 questions. So you get 40 data points, and we've done the heavy lifting in terms of what does success look like by either norming those tests or using an expert group to create a competency framework. So, and a competency framework is what AICPA is trying to move their whole CPA exam to. It's like, if you can show that you are working at this level, then you get a tick in a CPA sense, and in our case, you get a tick against your candidate should be able to do these various things. The tests are all developed based on our experience. So if you're doing your own experience is great, because that is what you're always wanting to benchmark against. Practical questions. What is a client going to email your staff about? What is a client going to ring your staff and ask them a question about? And if you're in a meeting, what sort of questions are you going to have to deal with? And then the interpretation that comes with that. All our tests are proctored, so that means that the camera is on. They're obviously all done remotely online. Camera's on, and the AI is watching the candidate, both in terms of their keystrokes and where they're looking, and who else is in the frame. And you get a report on that, as well as your skills report at the end. So this is just an example of a competency-based. This is just a cutout from the report, but in terms of our bookkeeper test, where you've got 3 levels of competency, being a processor, a full charge bookkeeper, and a senior full charge bookkeeper. And does my candidate demonstrate competency at any of those levels, and at which level do they top out in terms of their competency, and how does that fit against the job description? And really, that's always the thing, is with these tests, with any tests that you're looking at, is measuring up what test you want to use against the job description, so that the test you're using, whether it's one of ours or whether it's a different one, is what does the job description say, and what is the testing, and is that then fair based on the job description? What level of scoring are you looking for? What level of competency is going to be acceptable to take that person through to the next process? It's really hard to hire people, of course. Everyone knows that. You may have to take people through a process where their competency is not where you want it to be, and you're going to have to commit to training. Better to know that at the beginning than have that sort of sinking feeling in a month in that this person isn't what you wanted, or having the partner on the job or the manager on the job coming to you and going, you've sold me a pup. This person is not up to it. It's like, well, tell them that at the beginning and get them to work out what their training plan is.
Hey, Giles, we got a question from Zuzette if you want to take a look at it.
Okay.
I could read you it if you can't.
Go on, read it out.
All right. Zuzette asks, I love the idea of testing. Knowing how quickly things change, even with software updates, do you allow for a testee to perform research? I place higher value on someone who can find the answer over someone who memorizes steps.
Yeah, look, it's a hard one to answer. I think what our tests try and do is tell you what they know right now. But you're right. If there's I think there's two levels of that. One is you need to have a base level of knowledge to be able to research something. You need, what is it that you're researching? When you see an answer, will you know that this is a sensible answer in the context of what you're wanting to look at, or is actually, ChatGPT sent you down some rabbit hole? So I think there's a lot of value in knowing how to research, but there's a base level of knowledge that you need a person to have already so that they know where to start. I guess I put that in the context of you're in a meeting with a client and you're talking about a tax issue. You need to know what are the tax issues that are in my head in the context of this. How can we have a conversation around, we need to think about this, we need to think about that. Here's some planning opportunities that we could think about. So that's that sort of base level of knowledge. You don't necessarily need to know the absolute technicals of all of those aspects, but you need to know that they're around. And then the ability to research comes next, when it's like, well, now I know, I've scoped out the question. Now I'm going to go away and sort of make sure that I'm getting the right answer. So I think that's the context in which to think about that. Look, there's no right or wrong way to do that, but I guess at an extreme, if you simply put up a question and say to the candidate, go and research it, and they just copy and paste the question into ChatGPT and give you the answer, then anyone can do that. And that's the challenge that all professional services are having. And but that misses a whole lot of stuff, as we know. And so I think that's sort of the way to think about it. So I hope that answers your question, or gives you some food for thought anyway. I'm just going to carry on here. So here's another example of another test. So this is an Excel intermediate test. There are some quite good Excel tests online in a live Excel environment, and you can see, again, you need to choose the right test. And we've seen with these particular Excel tests, people often overestimate what they're looking for candidates to do, and then the candidates struggle. So it's it's about getting the right tests. Ability is the next part of this, the testing, or the last part, I guess. So these we've all done these, particularly as graduates. You'd be very familiar with doing numerical and verbal and abstract reasoning. So here's a passage of text, answer some questions. Here's a table of data, and do some, interpret something from that. Here, as we're showing on the screen here, here's some shapes. What's the next one in the series? You're assessing, candidates' cognitive abilities. There are generally different levels. So a managerial professional level test will be harder, and they're always been because the score your candidate gets will be compared to a norm group. that the testing provider will have developed. There's some really well-known names out there: SHL, Talent Q, and Connexa. We've actually developed our own as well, which are not online yet, but you'll see those shortly that are more specific to accounting. But in essence, it's an IQ test. Interpretation of these tests is really easy because you just get a score. The tests are always timed, and they're always hard, and there's usually more questions than a candidate could ever possibly answer in the time. And the idea of that is to see how far somebody can get. So it's their speed of working. So they're challenging for the candidates, but you get to see their ability to think, and I guess in terms of the use of more complex language and more complex data, their ability to interpret that. So when would you do this? There's no absolute right answer, but it would make sense to me to do the testing after your initial screen. So particularly when you don't have a lot of candidates, it's not like you're sifting through mountains of eligible candidates. You might get a lot of applications, but a lot of them will probably not be ones you would want to pursue anyway. So do your initial phone screen, get your shortlist. That's the great time to do testing, because there's a couple of big benefits in that. One is you're going to go into that first interview with all of this information. So you'll have your skills nailed down. You'll know whether they're in your ballpark, and you'll also have the questions that you want to ask in that competency-based interview. The personality profile is in front of you. You can dig in and answer those questions. Two big benefits from that. One is if the person tests so badly on their skills that you just go, I would never hire this person. Well, you've just saved your firm $1,000 in interview costs for interviewing somebody who they were never going to hire anyway. Secondly, because moving fast is key, there's really no reason at the end of that first interview, if you identify a really good candidate, why would you not make them an offer straight after the first interview? And if your offer is the first one they receive, you've got the best chance of getting them on board. Those firms who spread this process out and are slow, the good candidates will have gone by the time they get around to talking to them. So that is the benefit. But we do see people using testing at different stages through the interview. It's not completely silly to use the tests even after you've decided to hire somebody, to make sure that they're where you think they are, and to make sure the manager that they're going to work to knows more about them and gets their training plan organized. Are candidates worried about being tested? Not if you talk to them in the right way. They're not. If you say to them, this is not a cut process, we're not going to just cut you out based on it's not a pass fail. This is us learning more about you. You're going to do your due diligence on us. We want to do our due diligence on you. We want to understand you. When we hire you, we want to make that onboarding process the best it can be. We want to organize your training. We want to give you the best coaching support that you can get. How can we do that if we don't know enough about you? So that's the and when described like that, we haven't had any feedback saying candidates are not willing to do it. Candidates who want to work for you as a long-term career option, they'll love this. If they just see you as a stepping stone to the next thing and they only want to stay with you 12 months, well, maybe they won't want to do it. You probably don't want to hire them. So should you share the results with the candidates? Yes, but only after you've got out of them what you need to, and probably after you've had a chance to use the results in your interview process. So let's just do a little case study. So we want to hire a staff accountant, and we're going to use some testing and assessment to dig into that a little bit further. So we get our personality profile, and we're going to use this to think about what questions we want to ask. So there's some, as I say, this is a live profile from one of our team. I'm not going to tell you who it is, but what are questions are you going to look at there? Well, clearly there's some issues there around social boldness, assertiveness, warmth, affiliation. All of those areas are ones where the candidate's telling you that this is not something that they enjoy. They're not team players. They're not assertive. They don't like to deal with conflict. So, when you talk about the sort of questions, tell me about a time when, that's where you're going to talk about, use questions about relationships or about conflict and how they deal with that. And so that's where, the questions that come with the profile are going to help you. The flip side of that is you look at the next page and you go, well, my candidate's pretty much in the middle of where all accountants are on these traits. I don't need to dig in to those questions. They're not going to be the ones, other than the one at the bottom there, where they're telling me that they get easily frustrated. So, you're able to focus in your interview questions on those things. You give them a skills test. So here's the results from our staff accountant test. This is a norm group test. So we got a bunch of people to take this test before we put it up, and so you get to see where's my candidate compared to the bell curve of staff accountants. They're on the 64th percentile, so they're almost in the top third. That's pretty much a tick. We're happy that they are, better than the midpoint. So their technical skills are going to be in the ballpark for us. We get a bit of a slice and dice on that. So they're showing us that they've got really strong skills in that double entry accounting and practical application. Got a bit of a few gaps there in terms of the understanding of some of the accounting concepts. But there's no train crash there. And, I guess if I was looking at that and seeing poor results in the double entry accounting and the practical application areas, I'd be more worried. But I wouldn't be worried with that result. So I get a tick for that. And so I'm putting this together in a hiring matrix, and some of the HR people might look at this and go, not sure about this, but my accountant brain tells me this is a great way to think about a decision-making profile. So I get a personality fit. I do a comparison on my candidate's profile to an ideal profile. So I get that fit. I've got a technical score result, and I think that's important. So I weight that at 1.5. I've got an ability test score result. You might not have all of these things, but you work with what you've got. I've done my interview scoring because I know about good interviewing technique, and I'm weighting that 1.5 because interviews are really important. And I've got an overall weighted score, and that's telling me I should hire candidate number 2, all things being equal. If I'm not going to hire candidate number 2, I need to justify to my fellow interview panel why I think, or we need to justify to ourselves why they're not going to be the best candidate for us. Okay, we're coming to the end here. So it is always important to think about what do we do with our diverse candidates and our legal issues. Start off with the legal area. So EEOC rules around testing and assessment are pretty clear. You need to use tests that are appropriate for the role that you're hiring for. So that goes back to my discussion about the big 5 personality profiles. Tests that are appropriate, that they are used for all, use the same testing for all candidates. So you can't pick and choose and either use different tests or test some people and not others, and that the people who are administering the tests are appropriately trained to do that. What that training looks like depends on the test. For example, skills and ability tests are pretty simple. The personality one, you do need to make sure you understand what it is you're looking at. For example, we have a whole lot of interpretation videos, but other testing providers will actually want to give you a one-on-one feedback. We moved away from that just so that you got the results instantly, so that you didn't have to wait. But anyway, so that's the legal side of it. You've got privacy issues, which you need to deal with. Diverse candidates is becoming more of an issue, and we do get fairly regular questions around candidates who are asking for more time. And it's challenging for all testing providers, and this applies to whatever test you're using. And we would always say, if you instead of just giving more time, because if that's the case, it's like, well, how much more time? It's impossible to know. You're better to think about what does success look like for this candidate based on them completing the test in the time that we've already allowed. Do that in advance, and then you've got a comparison to what that looks like. English as a second language, obviously any test that you use, you want to make sure that questions and wording is not ambiguous. But equally, we would expect our candidates to be able to work in business English, so that's important. So if the wording is clear, we'd expect people to be able to understand and use that. So that pretty much brings us to the end. We have got a bit of time for questions. If you want more information, you've got my email address there. You can find me on LinkedIn. And there's a link there to a page that we've set up specifically to go with this webinar. There's a couple of special offers on there as well, but also you can go through and grab the Hiring Fast with Confidence guide, which is the one that I talked about. That takes you through the full hiring process. The other thing we have on there is our hiring health quiz. So what that does is tells you in 20 questions, what does the health of my hiring process look like? So we asked some pretty pointed questions about how does your what do you do at certain stages through the hiring process? You end up with a score and with some pointers, specific pointers on things that you could do to improve your hiring process. And you can use that. You're not going to fix all of those at once, but anything we can all do to make our hiring processes better is going to be a significant improvement for the profession and enable you to hire fast and with confidence. So with that, let's see if we have any questions. Zach, have you seen anything else?
No, I don't see anything live that's coming through.
Okay, we'll give that a few seconds. I'd all encourage you to go back and have a look at the way that you have your hiring processes worked out. Is it all documented? Make sure you have your timetables worked out. It's all about doing this at speed and being prepared, making sure that when the candidates come and do due diligence on your firm, that they're going to have an experience that you're going to be proud of. And that's your website, that's your LinkedIn profile, that's your staff's LinkedIn profiles. Do that groundwork in advance. It's going to make such a big difference. And then, the testing and assessment as you get in there can really make sure that you make those decisions at pace and get them right. So if we don't have any questions, maybe we'll call it a day.
Yeah, I was going to say, thanks everyone for attending. And here's a quick reminder on how you can earn CPE for attending today's webinar.
Today's event has ended. To earn CPE, Go to earmark.app or scan the QR code on the screen. Then log in or create your free account. Search for the course by tapping on the magnifying glass icon on the home screen and then entering the name of this event. It takes a few days to make the course, so if you're attending this event live, keep an eye out for an email letting you know when the course is available. Pass the quiz to earn your CPE, then tap the button to email yourself a certificate. Stay tuned for more events from Earmark. Thanks for joining us, and we hope to see you again soon.